Hello guys, Art-Teeves here. This is the third and final video of this playlist that covers the process of texturing this simple flower improvisation in Substance Painter. I start off by baking my model. It is unwrapped to a single 2K UV map and has a padding of 8. The whole low poly model only has a single smoothing group, so all smoothing groups get inherited from the high poly version. Both low poly and high poly models are positioned properly. Also, they are broken into multiple elements that share the same names but have different suffixes, LP and HP. I set the highest possible amount of raise on all tabs, disable the ID section, and set my subsampling to 16. Also, I set occlusion settings to the same mesh name only, so that we don't get some unwanted interactions between different objects. After we texture the flower, it gets merged into a single object, so we don't want any random occlusions. I really enjoy using Creature Skin Green Smooth preset Substance Painter material for organic objects. I use it for each part of this particular flower and then play around with its global balance, color palette, opacity settings of some of its layers, and also its built-in masks. I reduce the roughness of the central globe of the flower greatly to make it look wet and reflective. Also, I give it some uneven structure by using a fill layer and adding a couple of masks to it. You can also reduce the opacity of the layer you add to make it blend better. I also use another fill layer and apply a most from top smart mask to it, and then play around with its curvature settings and global balance to add some brown spots to the flower's top. You can edit the height of this layer a little bit to give your flower some additional structure. If you are making a model for some indie project, I wouldn't advise you to rely on normals too hard. Sometimes you get the ability to simply ignore this map for better optimization, and your model can look just fine considering the relatively high view distance. Next thing I do is duplicate my main flower layer, make it orange to see it better, apply black mask to it, and add a fill layer, and then add a directional noise map to it. Then I play around with its styling, positioning, angle, and the height of the corresponding layer. Since the UV chunks of my stems are positioned vertically, I don't have to rotate my strips layer. Also, in my case, I gave it the tiling of 0.3. Next thing I do is duplicate my main layer once again, color a thread to distinguish it from the rest of the model, and apply a grunge map 005 to it to create some organic veiny pattern for those side sag bulbs. Once again, I reduce its styling. This particular map makes UV seams stand out, so we will have to fix them later manually by using the Clone Stamp tool. The idea behind it is to use the Clone Stamp tool to prolong those organic veins the way they cross the seam line, break its straight form, and blend those small lines properly with the rest of the model. I use the same pattern for the stem of the flower. Make sure that it isn't stretched too hard and is normalized properly, otherwise you won't be able to rely on a Clone Stamp tool when fixing seams. I create two fill layers, one for the flower itself and one for the leaf, to highlight their borders. I do this by using the Mask Editor tool on some masked fill layers and playing around with their curvature settings. I give my leaf some light highlight layer, while the flower receives a kind of a darker border. Next I create a fill layer, apply a ground dirt smart mask to it, increase its roughness, put it into a masked folder, and use the polygon fill tool to apply some dirt gradient to my roots. You can also use a darker version of your main material for this purpose, which will only be better. Next I create a paint layer, set all of its blending options to pass through, and use the Clone Stamp tool to mask all UV seams and color transitions. I use it to break straight lines of each seam and also play around with its flow setting to get a better blend. Next I add some dirt to the flower's petals but not its central part and play around with its roughness. You can also increase the transparency of this layer for it to blend better with the rest of your model. I highlight the inner cavities of the flower by creating some red wet honey-like fill surrounding the flower's middle. Make sure to give it a relatively low roughness. The dirt must be positioned away so it doesn't affect those wet areas with its roughness. The leaf receives the same grunge 005 map that gives our plant the desired organic structure. Make sure to not overdo its styling and height. Finally, I enable the emissive channel in the shader settings menu, create a fill layer, mask it, apply a paint layer to it, and use it to create some glowing points on those side bulb things. Make sure to alter the size of your brush now and then, and also study your model with different environments to see how it reacts to global lighting. Also remember to reduce the height of those glowing points and give them some base color in case you'll decide to not to use the emission map for some reason. Remember to increase the size of UV chucks responsible for those side bulbs, so you can paint them even better and preserve all small details even if you scale down the general UV map. I add some organic patterns to the petals and finish this model. Thanks for watching, guys. If my videos are of use to you, be my guest and subscribe to my channel for more stylized content. And most importantly, have a great day.